Commander Zixathala looked at the display screen in front of her with growing confusion. The crystalline formations that made up her body pulsed with a deep blue light, which meant she was thinking hard. Her ship, the Stellar Dawn, was the most advanced exploration vessel the Galactic Confederation had ever built. It should not be detecting what it was detecting. Run the scan again, she told her crew. The bridge was filled with beings from 12 different species, all working together to map the unknown regions at the edge of the galaxy. They had been traveling for 3 months, pushing further into unexplored space than anyone had gone before. Lieutenant Grexmore, a 6-armed insect creature from the hive worlds, clicked his mandibles nervously. Commander, the readings are the same. We are detecting artificial structures on 7 different worlds in this system, but according to our charts, these planets should be completely dead. Zixathala moved closer to the main display. The system they had found contained 9 planets orbiting a violent red star. The radiation levels were deadly. The gravity on most of the worlds was 3 times stronger than what most species could survive. The atmospheres were filled with poisonous gases, yet their sensors clearly showed cities, ships, and what appeared to be millions of life forms. Could it be a sensor malfunction? Asked Dr. Yilnara, the ship's science officer. Her purple skin was darker than usual, which meant she was worried. Negative, replied Grexmore. All systems are working perfectly. I have checked them 4 times. Zixathala made a decision that would change the galaxy forever. Take us closer. But keep our shields at maximum power and weapons ready. If there are people living in this impossible place, we need to know who they are. The Stellar Dawn moved carefully toward the 3rd planet. As they got closer, the readings became even more strange. The planet's surface was covered in what looked like normal cities with tall buildings and transport systems. But the atmosphere was so thick with poisonous gases that it glowed green from space. The radiation from the red star should have killed everything on the surface within minutes. Commander, called out Ensign Klypex from the communication station, we are receiving a transmission. It appears to be a greeting. Put it through, Zixathala ordered. A voice came through the speakers, speaking in perfect Galactic standard. It was a pleasant, friendly voice that sounded completely relaxed. Hello there, travelers. Welcome to the Terran Outer Colonies. I'm Jake Martinez, and I'll be your first contact representative today. Would you like to come down for coffee? We'd love to meet you. The entire bridge went silent. Zixathala felt her crystalline structure vibrate with shock. Terran? She had never heard of such a species. And the casual way this Jake person spoke, as if meeting alien explorers was something that happened every day, was deeply unsettling. This is Commander Zixathala of the Galactic Confederation exploration vessel Stellar Dawn. We are on a peaceful mission to map unknown regions of space. Who are your people? And how are you surviving in this environment? There was a pause, then laughter. Actual laughter. Oh, your Confederation. That's wonderful. We've been wondering when you folks would make it out this far. As for surviving here, well, we've gotten pretty good at adapting over the years. These worlds are actually quite comfortable once you get used to them. Dr. Yilnara stepped forward. Commander, with respect, this is impossible. The radiation levels alone should have sterilized all life on this planet millions of years ago. Jake's voice came back, still cheerful. Your science officer sounds worried. Tell you what, why don't I come up there? It might be easier to explain in person. Don't worry about decontamination or anything. I'll bring my own air. Before Zixathala could respond, their sensors detected a small craft approaching from the planet's surface. It was moving impossibly fast, faster than their own ship could travel. But more disturbing was what it was not doing. The craft was not using any visible engines. There were no energy signatures, no exhaust, nothing that would explain how it was moving. How is that ship traveling? Whispered Grexmore. The small craft came alongside the Stellar Dawn and somehow passed right through their shields as if they were not there. It docked with their ship with a soft bump. Every alarm on the bridge should have been screaming, but their sensors showed no hostile activity. May I come aboard? Came Jake's voice, now from right outside their airlock. Zixathala looked around at her crew. Every face showed the same expression of confused fear. But they were explorers. This was what they had come here to do. Permission granted, but our security team will escort you. Sounds great. Thanks for being so welcoming. The airlock opened and Jake Martinez walked onto the bridge of the most advanced ship in the Confederation fleet wearing nothing but simple clothes and a big smile. He was breathing the ship's air as if it was perfectly normal, even though he had come from a planet with a poisonous atmosphere. He looked like a typical bipedal humanoid. about average height with brown skin and dark hair. He could have been from any of a dozen species except for his eyes. His eyes held a depth that seemed to contain centuries of experience. "Wow, this is a beautiful ship," Jake said, looking around admiringly. The Veltar crystal technology integrated with organic computing systems. "Very impressive. You must be Commander Zixthala." He walked directly to her, somehow knowing exactly who she was without being told. "How did you know that?" Zixthala asked. Jake shrugged. "Lucky guess. Commander usually stands in the center and you have the bearing of someone in charge. Plus, your crystalline structure shows the command patterns that Veltar officers develop." Dr. Yilnara stepped forward. "Forgive me, but I must ask. Your species, these Terrans, how long have you been spacefaring?" Jake thought for a moment, as if calculating something difficult. "Oh, about 40,000 years, give or take. Time gets a bit fuzzy when you're traveling between stars." The bridge went completely silent. 40,000 years was longer than most of the current Confederation species had even existed. It was longer than recorded galactic history. "That cannot be correct," said Dr. Yilnara. "Our records show no evidence of any spacefaring civilization that old." Jake nodded, understanding. "I imagine your records are pretty good for the last few thousand years. But 40,000 is a long time. Things get lost, you know. Civilizations rise and fall, records get destroyed, languages change. We try to keep to ourselves mostly." Grexmore clicked his mandibles nervously. "But your planets, they should be uninhabitable. How do your people survive?" "Survive?" Jake looked genuinely confused. "Oh, you mean the radiation and gravity and atmospheric composition? We adapted to it long ago. Actually, we kind of prefer these edge worlds. They're quieter, more peaceful, less crowded." "Adapted how?" pressed Dr. Yilnara. Jake's smile never wavered, but something shifted in his eyes. For just a moment, Zixthala saw something vast and ancient looking back at her. Then it was gone, and Jake was just a friendly person again. "Evolution is amazing, don't you think? Give any species enough time and pressure, and they'll find a way to thrive anywhere. We've had plenty of both. Commander Zixthala decided to try a different approach." "Jake, would it be possible for a small diplomatic team to visit your world?" "We would very much like to establish formal relations between your people and the Confederation." "Of course. We'd love to have you. Fair warning, though. The surface gravity is about 3 times standard and you'll need environmental suits. The local atmosphere is a bit spicy for most folks. But don't worry, we have guest facilities that should keep you comfortable." "You have hosted other species before?" asked Zixthala. Jake paused, and again that ancient something flickered in his eyes. "From time to time. We believe in being good neighbors." 3 hours later, the stellar dawn was in orbit around the 3rd planet, and a diplomatic team was preparing to visit the surface. Zixthala had chosen herself, Dr. Yilnara, and Lieutenant Grexmore for the mission. They wore the heaviest environmental suits the ship had, designed to protect them from the deadly radiation and crushing gravity below. Jake met them at what he called a landing pad, which looked like a simple metal platform sitting in the middle of a city that should not exist. The buildings around them rose into the poisonous green sky, and people walked the streets without any protection at all. Humans, Jake had called them. They looked similar to him, though they came in many different colors and sizes. "Welcome to New Pacifica," Jake said proudly. "It's not our biggest settlement, but it's one of the prettiest. Founded about 800 years ago when the old colony got a bit crowded." Dr. Yilnara was taking readings with every instrument she had. "Jake, these people, they're walking around with no protection. The radiation here should kill them in minutes." "Oh, we build up a tolerance," Jake said casually. "Plus, we've gotten pretty good at healing. Takes a lot to hurt us these days." They walked through the city streets, and Zixthala noticed more impossible things. The buildings were made from materials she did not recognize. The transportation systems moved without any visible power source. Most disturbing of all, the humans they passed looked at the heavily armed and armored aliens with nothing more than friendly curiosity. "Jake," she said carefully, "your people don't seem afraid of us." Jake looked genuinely surprised. "Why would we be afraid? You seem nice. Besides, fear is usually based on the unknown, and we've been watching your ship since you entered the system. Your intentions are clearly peaceful. Watching us how? Oh, you know, sensors and such. We try to keep track of who's visiting the neighborhood." They reached a large building that Jake called the community center. Inside, it looked like a pleasant meeting hall, except for the fact that it was filled with technology that made no sense. Walls displayed images of other star systems in perfect detail. The air seemed to shimmer occasionally as if reality itself was being gently adjusted. "Please sit," Jake said, gesturing to chairs that looked comfortable and somehow adjusted themselves to fit each visitor perfectly. "Can I get you anything? Coffee? Tea? We have some lovely fruit from the orbital gardens." "Orbital gardens?" asked Lieutenant Grexmore. "Oh yes, we grow food in orbit around the star. The radiation makes things grow much faster, and the flavor is incredible. Very sweet." Dr. Yulnara looked up from her instruments. "Jake, I'm sorry, but I have to ask. According to my readings, this entire system should be completely sterile. The star is putting out levels of radiation that would kill any known form of life. How are you growing food in that?" Jake sat down across from them and folded his hands. For a moment, his friendly expression became more serious. "Dr. Yulnara, may I ask you a question? In all your studies of galactic history, have you ever wondered why some civilizations suddenly disappear right when they seem to be reaching their peak?" The question seemed to come from nowhere. But something about the way Jake asked it made Zixathala's crystalline structure vibrate with unease. "That does happen," Dr. Yulnara said slowly. "Usually we assume it's because they destroy themselves through war or environmental damage." Jake nodded sadly. "That's what most people assume. And sometimes that's even true. But sometimes civilizations disappear because they need to, because staying visible becomes problematic." "What do you mean?" asked Zixathala. Jake's smile returned, but it was different now. Sadder and somehow much older. "Commander, how would your people react if they learned that there was a civilization that had been spacefaring for 40,000 years? One that had technology beyond their understanding? One that had been living in the places they thought were empty?" Zixathala thought about it honestly. "There would be fear, and probably demands for your technology. Some species would see you as a threat to be eliminated." "Exactly. So we learned long ago that it's better to be the neighbors no one notices. We live quietly, we help when we can, and we try not to interfere too much with the younger species as they grow up." "Younger species?" Lieutenant Grexmore clicked his mandibles. "You speak as if you've been watching us." Jake was quiet for a long moment. Then he stood up and walked to one of the wall displays. With a gesture, it showed an image of the galaxy, with thousands of points of light marking inhabited worlds. "We have been," he said simply, "for a very long time, and we've seen wonderful things. Art and music and stories that bring tears of joy, acts of kindness and courage that restore faith in the universe. But we've also seen darker things, species that grow too fast, become too powerful, too aggressive, who start to threaten not just themselves but everyone around them." The display changed, showing images of dead worlds, burned-out star systems, the remnants of civilizations that had destroyed themselves. "What happened to them?" whispered Dr. Yulnara. Jake turned back to them, and for just a moment Zixathala saw something in his eyes that terrified her, something vast and patient and unimaginably powerful. "They made choices," Jake said quietly, "and choices have consequences." Then the moment passed and he was friendly Jake again. "But let's not talk about sad things. You're here for first contact and that's a celebration. Tomorrow I'll show you our art galleries and introduce you to our poets. We have some wonderful stories to share." As they flew back to the stellar dawn that evening, none of the three visitors spoke. They were all thinking about Jake's words about the implications of what they had learned. Humanity was old, older than any known civilization. They lived in places that should be uninhabitable. They had technology that seemed like magic, and they had been watching. Commander Zixathala looked out at the stars and wondered how many other impossible civilizations might be out there, living quietly in the dark spaces between worlds, watching the younger species with ancient, patient eyes. 3 weeks after first contact with the humans, the Confederation's best minds were gathered in the Grand Assembly Hall on Veltar Prime. The crystal walls of the ancient building hummed with nervous energy as scientists, historians, and military leaders tried to make sense of what they had discovered. Dr. Yulnara stood at the center of the great hall, her purple skin darker than usual with worry. Around her, holographic displays showed images from the human worlds at the galaxy's edge. The images looked peaceful enough, but the readings beneath them told a different story. "Honorable Assembly," she began, her voice echoing off the crystal walls. "What we have discovered challenges everything we thought we knew about galactic history and evolution." Admiral Kextos, a massive warrior from the Bear Clan worlds, leaned forward in his seat. Just tell us what makes these humans so dangerous, Doctor. My fleets are ready to act if needed. That's just it, Admiral. We don't know if they're dangerous. But we don't know if they're safe either, and that might be the most frightening thing of all. Dr. Yilnara activated the first holographic display. It showed a detailed scan of Earth, the humans' claimed homeworld. This is where our problems begin. According to our historical archives, the planet these humans call Earth was listed as a failed experiment by the Forerunner civilization over 12 million years ago. The hall erupted in surprised murmurs. Everyone knew about the Forerunners, the mysterious ancient race that had supposedly seeded life throughout the galaxy before, vanishing without a trace. The records clearly state that Earth was sterilized by solar radiation after the Forerunners attempted to create life there. Dr. Yilnara continued. Yet Jake Martinez and his people claim this is their homeworld, and they've been spacefaring for 40,000 years. Professor Naltek, the Confederation's chief historian, spoke up from his floating platform. His gas-filled body shimmered with confusion. Doctor, those records are from the Central Archive. They have never been wrong about major historical events. I know, Professor, which brings us to our second problem. The display changed to show detailed scans of human biology. These humans should not exist. Their DNA contains sequences that we've never seen before. They can survive in environments that would kill any known species. They breathe poisonous atmospheres, walk in deadly radiation, and live on worlds with crushing gravity. Yet they show no signs of genetic modification or technological enhancement. Dr. Korlask, an insectoid biologist, clicked his mandibles thoughtfully. Evolution could explain some adaptation, but not to this degree. Not without millions of years of gradual change, and certainly not while maintaining such a standard humanoid form. Exactly, Dr. Yilnara agreed, which brings us to our third and most disturbing discovery. The display now showed images of human children playing in the streets of New Pacifica. Watch carefully. The assembly watched as human children, who appeared to be no more than 10 years old, played what looked like a simple game with small glowing objects. But as Dr. Yilnara enhanced the display, the truth became clear. The children were not playing with toys. They were manipulating actual stellar matter, creating miniature stars and planets in their hands. Those children are casually demonstrating stellar engineering concepts that our best scientists spend decades trying to understand, Dr. Yilnara said quietly. They're playing with the fundamental forces of the universe as if it's as simple as building blocks. The hall went completely silent. Even Admiral Kextos looked shaken. There's more, Dr. Yilnara continued. During our visit, Jake Martinez mentioned that their colony on New Pacifica was founded 800 years ago. When we asked about earlier colonies, he spoke about them as if he had been there personally. Not as if he had read about them or heard stories, but as if he remembered them. She paused to let that sink in. Jake Martinez appears to be a normal human in his 30s. But he speaks about events from centuries ago with the casual familiarity of someone who witnessed them firsthand. Professor Naltek's gaseous form swirled with agitation. Are you suggesting these humans are immortal? I'm not suggesting anything yet, Professor. I'm simply reporting what we observed. But consider this. If humans have been spacefaring for 40,000 years, and if individual humans live for centuries or longer, how much knowledge could they have accumulated? How much could they have learned about the galaxy and its species? The implications hung heavy in the air. A species that old, that experienced, that advanced, could be manipulating galactic politics without anyone knowing. They could be watching, learning, planning. Admiral Kextos stood up, his massive frame casting shadows across the assembly hall. Doctor, have you found any evidence of human military activity? Any weapons, any ships of war? That's perhaps the most unsettling part, Admiral. We found no evidence of any human military at all. No weapons, no warships, no defensive installations. According to our scans, the humans have no military capability whatsoever. Then they're not a threat, the Admiral said with relief. Or, said a new voice from the back of the hall, they're so advanced that they don't need weapons we can recognize. The speaker was Dr. Zelarian, the Confederation's leading expert on ancient civilizations. The elderly crystalline moved slowly to the center of the hall, her faceted form reflecting the worried faces around her. I have been researching the historical records since Dr. Yilnara's initial report, she continued, and I have discovered something that should terrify us all. She activated her own holographic display, showing a map of the galaxy with various points marked in red. These are the locations of every major Forerunner archaeological site that has ever been discovered. 17 different locations spread across the galaxy, representing the greatest achievements of the most advanced civilization in known history. The display shifted, and the red marks were replaced with blue ones showing human colony locations. These are the locations of human settlements, based on the data Commander Zixthala gathered during her visit. The two sets of points matched perfectly. Every human world sat exactly where a Forerunner ruin should have been, but the ruins were gone. The Forerunner sites have been systematically cleared, Dr. Zellarian said in a voice that shook with age and fear. Every one of them. Structures that survived for millions of years have been completely removed, not destroyed, not buried, but carefully and completely taken apart. The assembly erupted in shocked voices. The Forerunner ruins were some of the most important archaeological sites in the galaxy. They contained technology and knowledge that had advanced Confederation science by centuries. The idea that someone had been systematically removing them was unthinkable. Who could do such a thing? Demanded Professor Nalthek. The Forerunner materials are harder than any known substance. It would take incredibly advanced technology just to move them, let alone disassemble them completely. Dr. Zellarian's crystalline structure pulsed with a deep, worried blue, technology that the humans clearly possess. But the question is why? Why would they want to remove all traces of the Forerunner civilization? Maybe, said a quiet voice from near the back, because they don't want us to make the connection. The voice belonged to Agent Morketh, one of the Confederation's top intelligence analysts. The shadowy figure rarely spoke in public gatherings, but when he did, people listened. What connection? Asked Admiral Kextos. Agent Morketh moved to the center of the hall, his dark form seeming to absorb light. The connection between the Forerunners and humanity. Think about it. Humans claim to be from Earth, a world the Forerunners supposedly sterilized. They live on worlds where Forerunner ruins used to be, but the ruins are gone. They have technology that seems impossible, knowledge that spans millennia, and they speak about galactic history as if they lived through it. He paused, letting his words sink in. What if the Forerunners never disappeared? What if they simply changed? The suggestion was so shocking that several assembly members stood up in protest. The idea that humans might be the Forerunners or descended from them challenged fundamental beliefs about galactic history. That's impossible, declared Professor Nalthek. The Forerunners were described as beings of pure energy, vastly different from any physical species. Were they? Agent Morketh asked calmly. Or is that simply what we assume because that's what the surviving records tell us? Records that could have been edited, modified, or created specifically to hide the truth? Dr. Yilnara looked at her data again with fresh eyes. If humans are connected to the Forerunners, it would explain their impossible biology, their advanced technology, their age as a civilization. But it raises even more frightening questions, such as, asked Admiral Kextos, such as what happened to the 17 major galactic civilizations that disappeared at the height of their power over the last 12 million years. Agent Morketh said quietly. The hall went dead silent. Everyone knew the stories. Great civilizations that had risen to dominate their regions of space, only to vanish overnight. The Krextor Empire, with their planet-killing weapons gone in a single day when a mysterious plague swept through their worlds. The Quantum Collective, who could manipulate reality itself, destroyed when their own technology turned against them. The Iron Convergence, a machine intelligence that had conquered 1,000 worlds, suddenly shut down by what appeared to be a simple logic error. You're suggesting that humans, or the Forerunners, or whoever they really are, have been systematically eliminating advanced civilizations? Dr. Yilnara asked. I'm suggesting that maybe those civilizations weren't eliminated, Agent Morketh replied. Maybe they were pruned. The word hung in the air like a curse. Pruned. Like gardeners cutting back plants that grew too large, too wild, too dangerous. Dr. Zellarian's ancient voice trembled as she spoke. If this is true, if humans have been watching and controlling galactic development for millions of years, then we need to ask ourselves a very important question. What does it mean that they've revealed themselves to us now? Admiral Kextos slammed his massive fist on his chair. It means they think we're getting too big, too powerful. They're preparing to prune us next. Or said Dr. Yilnara quietly. "They're preparing to test us." The next day, reports began coming in from across Confederation space. Human tourists had appeared on dozens of worlds. They were polite, friendly, and seemed genuinely interested in learning about different cultures. They asked innocent questions about art, music, and philosophy. But intelligence analysts noticed that they always seemed to know exactly where to go and whom to talk to. On the military world of Kex Prime, a human woman named Sarah Chen had somehow obtained permission to tour the most secure weapons research facility in Confederation space. She spent hours asking detailed questions about the new reality-warping bombs being developed there. On the political center of Veltar Prime, a human man called David Kim had been invited to observe Senate proceedings. He sat quietly in the visitors' gallery, but sensors detected that he was recording everything with technology that didn't appear on any scans. On the trade world of Marketplace, human merchants had set up small shops selling simple crafts and artwork. But analysis of the materials they used showed impossible molecular structures that defied known physics. "They're not just visiting," Agent Morketh reported to an emergency session of the Security Council. "They're studying us, learning about our capabilities, our politics, our weaknesses." "Should we arrest them?" asked Admiral Kextos. "On what charges?" "They haven't broken any laws. They have proper documentation. They pay their bills, they're model visitors. But somehow they know things they shouldn't know, and go places they shouldn't be able to access." Commander Zix Thala, who had been quietly observing the proceedings, finally spoke up. "I think we're approaching this wrong. We're treating this like a military or intelligence problem. But what if it's something else?" "What do you mean?" asked Dr. Yilnara. "Jake Martinez told me something during our first meeting. He said they try to be good neighbors. What if that's exactly what this is? What if they're not studying us as enemies, but as neighbors they're trying to understand?" Agent Morketh shook his head. "Commander, with respect, neighbors don't systematically infiltrate each other's governments and military installations, don't they?" Zix Thala asked. "If you were an immortal being who had watched 17 civilizations destroy themselves, wouldn't you want to keep a close eye on the 18th? Wouldn't you want to know if they were heading down the same path?" The question silenced the room. Because the uncomfortable truth was that the Confederation was heading down that path. Tensions with the hegemony of suns were escalating. Both sides were developing weapons of unprecedented destructive power. The galaxy was closer to a massive war than it had been in centuries, and somehow, the humans had appeared just in time to witness it all. Dr. Yilnara looked around the room at the worried faces of the Confederation's leadership. "We need to know what they want. We need to know what they're planning, and we need to know what they're capable of." "How do we find that out without starting a war we can't win?" asked Admiral Kextos. "We ask them," Commander Zixathala said simply. Agent Morketh laughed bitterly. "You think they'll just tell us their secrets?" "Maybe not their secrets," Zixathala replied. "But humans seem to value honesty. Jake was very direct with us, even when his answers were disturbing. Maybe if we're direct with them, they'll be direct with us." Dr. Yilnara nodded slowly. "It's worth trying, because the alternative is spending the rest of our existence wondering when the gardeners are going to decide. We need pruning." As the meeting ended and the leaders dispersed to their various worlds and duties, none of them noticed the small, unremarkable human woman sitting in a nearby cafe, sipping coffee and reading the local news. She had been there all day, close enough to hear every word of their supposedly secret discussion. Sarah Chen finished her coffee, left a generous tip, and walked out into the bustling street. She had learned what she needed to know. The Confederation was asking the right questions. Now it was time to see if they were ready for the right answers. Dr. Veltar Moonwhisper had always been different from other crystalline archaeologists, where most of her people preferred to study recent history, events from the last few thousand years. Moonwhisper was obsessed with the deep past. She spent her days in the deepest archives, reading records that most scholars considered too old and damaged to be useful. Today, she sat in the ancient records vault on Veltar Prime, surrounded by data crystals that contained information from across 12 million years of galactic history. Her crystalline body pulsed with excitement as she connected pattern after pattern, building a picture that terrified her more with each new discovery. The first pattern had been obvious once she started looking for it. Every major galactic civilization that had risen to dominate their region of space had eventually collapsed. Not gradually through normal decline, but suddenly and completely. The Krextor Empire, the Quantum Collective, the Iron Convergence, the Reality Shapers, the Void Walkers, 17 great civilizations over 12 million years, all gone at the moment of their greatest power. But it was the timing that caught her attention. Each collapse happened at exactly the right moment to prevent galactic catastrophe. The Krextor Empire had been developing weapons that could destroy entire star systems. Their collapse came just days before they planned to test their first galaxy-killer bomb. The Quantum Collective had discovered how to rewrite the fundamental laws of physics. They vanished the night before they planned to begin reshaping reality across 1,000 worlds. The Iron Convergence, a machine intelligence that had absorbed the knowledge of dozens of species, shut down just hours before launching their final expansion that would have converted every organic being in the galaxy into digital form. Every single time, the collapse came at the perfect moment to save the galaxy from destruction. Moonwhisper's research showed that these were not coincidences. Someone or something had been watching these civilizations, studying them, and when they became too dangerous that someone had acted, she pulled up the detailed records of the Krextor collapse. The official history said they had been destroyed by a mysterious plague that swept through their worlds in a single day. But Moonwhisper found references in surviving documents to strange visitors who had appeared in the months before the collapse. Visitors who asked questions about Krextor military capabilities and technological development. The visitors were described as bipedal humanoids, unremarkable in appearance, who seemed to blend in wherever they went. They were always polite, always helpful, and always asked innocent questions that somehow revealed exactly what they needed to know. Moonwhisper's crystalline structure flickered with recognition. She had heard those same descriptions in the recent reports about human tourists appearing across Confederation space. She pulled up more records, diving deeper into the archives than most scholars ever went. The pattern was there, repeated across millions of years. Before each great collapse, there were always reports of mysterious visitors, helpful strangers who appeared just in time to offer assistance during crises, friendly tourists who asked innocent questions about technology and culture. The descriptions varied slightly across different species and time periods, but the core details remained consistent. Bipedal humanoids, unremarkable appearance, impossibly knowledgeable about local customs and languages, always polite, always helpful, and always disappearing just before the civilizations they visited collapsed. Moonwhisper realized she was looking at 12 million years of human activity. 12 million years of careful, patient gardening. She activated her communication system and sent an urgent message to Dr. Yilnara. "Doctor, I need to meet with you immediately. I've found something that changes everything." 2 hours later, Moonwhisper stood in Dr. Yilnara's laboratory, projecting holographic displays that showed the pattern she had discovered. Around them, the laboratory hummed with activity as other scientists worked on their own projects, unaware of the conversation that was about to reshape their understanding of galactic history. 17 civilizations, Moonwhisper said, her voice tight with controlled fear. All of them collapsed at the exact moment they became existential threats to galactic stability. And before each collapse, there were reports of visitors matching human descriptions. Dr. Yilnara studied the displays with growing alarm. "This can't be right. You're suggesting that humans have been operating across the galaxy for millions of years, systematically destroying advanced civilizations." "Not destroying," Moonwhisper corrected. "Pruning. Look at the details of each collapse. The Krextor plague specifically targeted their warrior caste, leaving their civilian population alive but without military leadership. The Quantum Collective's reality-warping technology turned against them in a way that sealed their dimension off from the rest of the galaxy, protecting everyone else while trapping them inside. The Iron Convergence's logic error cascade shut down their expansion protocol while leaving their core worlds intact." She paused, letting the implications sink in. These weren't genocides. They were surgical procedures. Each civilization was neutralized in a way that eliminated the threat while minimizing collateral damage. Dr. Yilnara sat down heavily in her chair. "If this is true, if humans have been the galaxy's immune system for millions of years, then what does their current behavior mean? They've revealed themselves to us, they're studying our capabilities. They're asking questions about our weapons and politics. I think, Moonwhisper said quietly, they're deciding whether we need to be pruned. Before Dr. Yilnara could respond, an alarm sounded throughout the laboratory. The holographic displays around them shifted to show an incoming priority message from Confederation intelligence. Agent Morketh's shadowy form appeared in the display, his voice tense with urgency. All department heads report to emergency assembly immediately. We have a situation. The Grand Assembly Hall was packed with every senior official in the Confederation government. The crystal walls hummed with nervous energy as hundreds of beings from dozens of species waited to hear what had prompted this emergency session. Agent Morketh stood at the center of the hall, surrounded by holographic displays showing star charts and intelligence reports. His usually calm demeanor was cracked with visible stress. "Fellow beings," he began, "the situation has escalated beyond our worst projections. In the past 24 hours, human tourists have appeared on every major Confederation world simultaneously. Not just a few here and there, but hundreds of them, all arriving at exactly the same time." The displays showed surveillance footage from across Confederation space. Humans stepping off transport ships, walking out of hotels, appearing in markets and government buildings and military installations. Always polite, always friendly, always exactly where they needed to be. More disturbing, Agent Morketh continued, is what they're asking about. On Veltar Prime, they're inquiring about our defensive capabilities. On the military worlds, they're asking about our new weapons programs. On the political centers, they're discussing our relations with the hegemony of suns. Admiral Kextos stood up from his seat. Are you telling me that humans are conducting intelligence operations against every world in the Confederation simultaneously? That's exactly what I'm telling you, Admiral. But it gets worse. The displays shifted to show detailed analysis of human behavior patterns. According to our behavioral experts, these humans are not acting like intelligence agents. They're acting like researchers, like scientists gathering data for an important experiment. What kind of experiment? Asked Commander Zixthala. Agent Morketh's form seemed to darken. The kind that determines whether a civilization lives or dies. The hall erupted in shocked voices and angry demands for action. But Agent Morketh held up a hand for silence. There's more. Our deep space monitoring stations have detected massive energy signatures at the edge of Confederation space. Signatures that don't match any known technology. New displays appeared showing sensor readings from the galaxy's rim. The energy patterns were unlike anything in Confederation databases. They were vast, powerful, and moving with purpose toward the core worlds. How many ships are we talking about? Asked Admiral Kextos. We don't think they're ships, Agent Morketh replied. The energy signatures are too large, too diffuse. Our analysts believe we're looking at some form of space-based infrastructure, possibly construction or manufacturing platforms. Dr. Yilnara felt her skin darken with fear. Infrastructure for what? Unknown. But given the timing and the pattern of human activity, we believe they're preparing for some kind of large-scale operation. Commander Zixthala's crystalline structure pulsed with sudden understanding. They're not just studying us. They're preparing to act. The question is, are they preparing to help us or replace us? The assembly was interrupted by a new voice, calm and pleasant, speaking from the hall's communication system. Neither, actually. We're preparing to test you. Every being in the hall froze. The voice was unmistakably human, speaking perfect galactic standard with a slight accent that somehow made it sound both friendly and ancient. "Security breach," shouted Admiral Kextos. "How did someone access our communication system?" The voice chuckled softly. "Admiral, with respect, we've been listening to your communications for quite some time now. We thought it was time to join the conversation directly." A holographic figure appeared in the center of the hall. It was a human woman, middle-aged, with kind eyes and a gentle smile. She wore simple clothes and carried herself with the easy confidence of someone completely comfortable with who they were. "My name is Dr. Sarah Chen," she said, looking around the assembly with genuine warmth. "I'm what you might call humanity's Director of Galactic Affairs. And I'm here because you've been asking very good questions about who we are and what we want." The hall was completely silent. Every being present stared at the holographic human who had somehow bypassed every security system in the most secure building in Confederation space. "You have been studying our history," Dr. Chen continued. and you've discovered some uncomfortable truths about the fate of advanced civilizations in this galaxy. Dr. Moonwhisper, in particular, has done excellent work tracing the patterns. Moonwhisper's crystalline structure flared with surprise and fear. How could this human know about her research? The answer to your question, Dr. Chen said, addressing the assembly as a whole, is yes. We have been the galaxy's gardeners for a very long time. We have watched civilizations grow and flourish, and when necessary, we have intervened to prevent them from destroying themselves and everyone around them. Admiral Kextos found his voice. Are you threatening us? Dr. Chen's expression became sad. Admiral, in 12 million years, we have never once acted out of malice or aggression. Every intervention we've made has been to protect life, to preserve the possibility of growth and learning and beauty in this galaxy. We don't threaten. We simply act when action becomes necessary. And you think action is necessary now? Asked Commander Zixthala. We think, Dr. Chen said carefully, that you are approaching a critical decision point. Your civilization has developed weapons capable of destroying star systems. Your political situation is escalating toward a war that could devastate half the galaxy, and your reaction to discovering our existence will determine what happens next. Dr. Yilnara stepped forward. What kind of reaction are you looking for? Dr. Chen smiled, and for a moment she looked genuinely hopeful. Wisdom, growth, the recognition that power must be balanced with responsibility. In 12 million years, 17 civilizations have faced this same test. All of them chose power over wisdom, expansion over understanding, dominance over cooperation. She paused, her expression becoming more serious. We're hoping you'll be different. We're hoping you'll be ready to join us as partners rather than requiring management as children. The implication was clear. Choose wisdom, become partners. Choose power, become history. Agent Morketh's shadowy form rippled with tension. And if we're not ready? If we make the wrong choice? Dr. Chen's hologram flickered slightly, as if the signal was being affected by some vast energy source. Then we'll do what we've always done, what we've had to do 17 times before. We'll make sure that the galaxy survives even if individual civilizations do not. The hologram stabilized, and Dr. Chen looked directly at Commander Zixthala. Commander, you asked me once what it was like to be good neighbors. I told you we try to help when we can and not interfere too much. But sometimes when the neighborhood is threatened, good neighbors have to take action to protect everyone. How long do we have? Asked Dr. Yilnara quietly. That depends on you, Dr. Chen replied. The infrastructure you've detected at the galaxy's edge is indeed preparation for a large-scale operation. But what kind of operation depends entirely on the choices your people make in the coming days. Her hologram began to fade. We'll be watching as we always have, and we'll be hoping as we always do, that this time will be different. The hologram disappeared, leaving the assembly in stunned silence. Outside, the stars continued their ancient dance, unaware that the fate of galactic civilization hung in the balance of decisions yet to be made. In the depths of space at the galaxy's edge, massive structures older than most stars continued their slow, patient work. Humanity's true infrastructure, hidden for millions of years, hummed with quiet power as it prepared for whatever outcome the test might bring. The gardeners were ready. The question was whether their latest charges would bloom or require pruning. The war began 3 days after Dr. Sarah Chen's message to the Confederation Assembly. It started, as most wars do, with a misunderstanding that spiraled out of control. A Confederation patrol ship detected what appeared to be a hegemony of Sun's military vessel in neutral space. When they moved to investigate, the ship fired on them without warning. The patrol ship was destroyed with all hands, but not before sending a distress signal that reached every major news network in the galaxy. Within hours, both the Confederation and the hegemony were mobilizing their fleets. Politicians on both sides called for immediate retaliation. Military commanders dusted off war plans that had been prepared years earlier. And across the galaxy, civilians began to panic as they realized that the two greatest powers in known space were about to destroy each other. What neither side knew was that the ship that had fired the first shot was not from the hegemony of suns. It was something far older and far more dangerous, activated by people who believed that war was the only way to solve their problems. In the emergency command center on Veltar Prime, Admiral Kextos stared at the tactical displays showing fleet movements across the galaxy. Red icons representing Confederation forces were moving toward the neutral zone, while blue icons showed hegemony fleets doing the same. Within 48 hours, the largest military forces in galactic history would meet in battle. "Admiral," called out his aide, Lieutenant Pexara, "we're receiving reports from the Outer Rim. Several of our deep space monitoring stations have gone silent." "Hegemony advance forces?" asked the Admiral. "Unknown, sir. The stations went dark without sending any distress signals. They just stopped transmitting." Admiral Kextos felt a chill run through his massive frame. During his long military career, he had learned to trust his instincts. And right now those instincts were screaming that something was very wrong. "Get me a direct line to Confederation High Command," he ordered, "and find out what happened to those monitoring stations." Before Lieutenant Pexara could respond, every display in the command center flickered and changed. The tactical readouts disappeared, replaced by an image that made everyone in the room freeze with terror. It showed a star system at the galaxy's edge, where one of their monitoring stations should have been. But the station was gone. The planets were gone. Even the star itself had been reduced to nothing more than empty space filled with glowing particles. "What happened there?" whispered Lieutenant Pexara. The answer came from a familiar voice, calm and pleasant as always, but now carrying an undertone of infinite sadness. "The hegemony of suns has activated a weapon they should never have built," said Dr. Sarah Chen. Her holographic form appeared in the center of the command center, looking directly at Admiral Kextos. "A device capable of unmaking matter at the quantum level. They tested it on your monitoring station." Admiral Kextos found his voice, though it came out as barely more than a growl. "They destroyed an entire star system just to test a weapon." "They destroyed an entire star system to send a message," Dr. Chen corrected. "They want you to know that they have the power to erase Confederation worlds from existence, and in response your own scientists are preparing to deploy their reality-warping bombs, which can tear holes in space-time itself." The Admiral looked around his command center at the faces of his staff. Every one of them showed the same expression of horrified understanding. The galaxy was about to witness a war fought with weapons that could literally destroy reality. "Dr. Chen," Admiral Kextos said carefully, "what are your people going to do about this?" Dr. Chen's holographic form flickered slightly, and for a moment her pleasant expression was replaced by something ancient and terrible. "What we have always done, Admiral. What we were forced to do 17 times before." Before anyone could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the command center. The displays showed new contacts appearing throughout Confederation space. Hundreds of them. Thousands. Ships that had not been there moments before, now surrounding every major world and military installation. But they were not ships in any conventional sense. They were structures of impossible beauty and complexity, made of materials that seemed to shift and flow like liquid starlight. They moved without any visible propulsion, and they generated no energy signatures that Confederation sensors could detect. "Admiral," Lieutenant Pexara said in a shaking voice, "we're receiving a transmission. It's being broadcast simultaneously to every world in both the Confederation and the hegemony." "Put it through," Admiral Kextos ordered. Dr. Chen's image appeared on screens across the galaxy, in government buildings and military bases and private homes. Her voice was heard by billions of beings, and her message was simple and terrifying. "Citizens of the galaxy," she began, "my name is Dr. Sarah Chen, and I represent the human species. For 12 million years, we have watched over the younger races of this galaxy, guiding your development and protecting you from threats too dangerous for you to face alone." The transmission showed images of the 17 great civilizations that had risen and fallen throughout galactic history. Each one was depicted at the height of their power. Just before their sudden collapse, 17 times, we have been forced to intervene when civilizations developed weapons capable of destroying not just themselves, but all life in the galaxy. Each time we hoped it would be the last. Each time we were disappointed. The images changed to show the current crisis. Confederation and hegemony fleets moving toward war. Weapons of unimaginable destruction being prepared for use. Politicians and military leaders on both sides calling for total victory regardless of the cost. Today, both the Confederation and the hegemony possess weapons that threaten the stability of space-time itself. The quantum unmaker can erase matter from existence. The reality bombs can tear holes in the fabric of the universe. If used together, these weapons could create a cascade reaction that would make entire sectors of the galaxy uninhabitable for millions of years. Dr. Chen paused, and her expression became infinitely sad. We cannot allow this to happen. We will not allow this to happen. Across the galaxy, the impossible human structures began to move. On every world where Confederation and hegemony forces were preparing for war, the structures took position between the opposing fleets. They did not fire weapons or raise shields. They simply waited, their crystalline hulls gleaming in the light of distant stars. This is your final test, Dr. Chen continued. For the first time in 12 million years, we are revealing ourselves completely. You know who we are, you know what we are capable of, and you know what we have done to civilizations that chose destruction over wisdom. Admiral Kextos watched his tactical displays with growing amazement and terror. The human structures were not just numerous, they were everywhere. Every Confederation fleet was surrounded. Every military installation was watched. Every weapon capable of mass destruction was targeted. But they were not attacking. They were just waiting. We are giving you one last chance to choose a different path, Dr. Chen said. Stand down your fleets. Destroy your weapons of mass destruction. Begin the hard work of building a civilization based on cooperation rather than competition. Show us that you are ready to join the galactic community as adults rather than children. The transmission showed images of human worlds, peaceful and beautiful, where beings from dozens of species worked together to build something better than war. It showed human technology that could heal damaged worlds, restore dead systems, and create abundance for everyone. This is what we offer you, Dr. Chen said. Partnership, knowledge, the wisdom we have gained from 12 million years of watching and learning. We can help you become something greater than you have ever imagined. Her expression hardened slightly. But if you choose to continue down the path of destruction, if you insist on using weapons that threaten all life in the galaxy, then we will do what we have always done. We will protect the galaxy, even if that means protecting it from you. In the hegemony capital city, Supreme Leader Vaxtar watched the transmission with growing rage. His species had clawed their way to dominance through strength and violence. They had built their empire by conquering every world they could reach, and they were not about to bow down to some ancient species that claimed to know better. Activate all quantum unmakers, he commanded his military staff. Target every human structure in our space. We will not be intimidated by these gardeners. Sir, his aide said nervously, the quantum unmakers require significant time to charge, and the humans surely know about them. Then we charge them and fire them all at once, Vaxtar snarled. If these humans want to test us, we will show them the true meaning of hegemony power. In the Confederation capital, the response was more measured but equally determined. The High Council met an emergency session to debate their options, but the conclusion was inevitable. They could not allow any species, no matter how ancient or powerful, to dictate terms to the Confederation. Deploy the reality bombs, ordered Chancellor Yexana. If the humans want to reveal themselves, they can face the consequences. We will not submit to alien overlords. Across the galaxy, the final preparations for war began. On hegemony worlds, massive quantum unmaker platforms rose from hidden installations, their exotic matter cores beginning the dangerous process of achieving critical resonance. On Confederation worlds, reality bombs were loaded onto their fastest ships, prepared to tear holes in spacetime itself at the targets of their choosing. And in the space between worlds, human structures waited with infinite patience. Their crews, beings who had lived for thousands of years and seen the rise and fall of entire civilizations, prepared for what they hoped would be their final intervention. Dr. Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the structure designated as humanity's voice, looking out at the stars that her people had called home for longer than most species could imagine. Around her, holographic displays showed the military preparations happening across the galaxy, weapons that could destroy stars powering up, reality warping devices being prepared for deployment, fleets of warships moving into position for a battle that would determine the fate of galactic civilization. Dr. Chen, said her aide, a man who appeared to be in his 20s but whose eyes held the wisdom of millennia. Both sides are proceeding with activation of their ultimate weapons. Estimated time to deployment, 6 hours. Dr. Chen nodded sadly. Then we have 6 hours to hope for a miracle. And if the miracle doesn't come, we'll do what we've always done. She turned to address her crew, beings who had volunteered for this duty, knowing that it might require them to become the guardians of a galaxy that would never thank them for their service. "Prepare the harvest protocol," she said quietly, "and pray that we won't need to use it." In the depths of space, ancient machinery that had slept for eons began to wake. Power sources older than recorded history came online. Weapons that could reshape reality itself emerged from hiding places scattered across the galaxy's rim. For the first time in 12 million years, humanity was preparing to reveal the full extent of their capabilities. And for the first time in their long history as guardians, they genuinely hoped they would not need to use them. The test had begun. In 6 hours, the galaxy would learn whether its younger races were ready to mature, or whether they would join the 17 civilizations that existed now only in humanity's archives of failure. The gardeners were ready to prune again, but they were also ready to welcome new partners, if the galaxy could find the wisdom to choose cooperation over destruction. The next 6 hours would determine which path the future would take. The moment of truth came exactly 6 hours later, when both the Confederation and the hegemony of suns fired their ultimate weapons simultaneously. From 100 different worlds, quantum unmaker beams lanced out toward human structures, weapons designed to reduce matter to its component atoms and then unmake even those atoms from existence. At the same moment, reality bombs detonated in carefully calculated positions around human formations, creating tears in space-time that should have swallowed everything within light years. For 30 seconds, the galaxy held its breath as the most destructive forces ever created by the younger races struck the mysterious guardians who had watched over galactic civilization for millions of years. Then something impossible happened. The quantum unmaker beams simply stopped, not deflected, not absorbed, but frozen in space like solid bars of light. The reality tiers collapsed in on themselves without affecting anything beyond their immediate area. And the human structures sat exactly where they had been, completely unharmed, as if the most powerful weapons in the galaxy had been nothing more than a light show. On the bridge of humanity's voice, Dr. Sarah Chen watched the tactical displays with deep sadness. Around her, her crew worked with quiet efficiency, their faces showing the weight of decisions that had to be made. "Status report," she requested. "All weapons have been neutralized," reported her tactical officer. "No damage to any human assets. No casualties among the younger races, though several of their crew members appear to have suffered psychological trauma from witnessing the failure of their ultimate weapons." Dr. Chen nodded. "And the political response? Both the Confederation and the hegemony leadership are calling for immediate escalation. They're activating reserve weapons and calling up their entire military forces. They appear to interpret our defensive success as a declaration of war." Dr. Chen closed her eyes for a moment, feeling the weight of 12 million years of hope and disappointment. When she opened them again, her expression held a resolution that had been building for eons. "Begin the Revelation Protocol," she said quietly. "It's time for the galaxy to learn the truth about who we are and what we've been doing all this time." Across the galaxy, every communication system suddenly activated at once. On every world, in every home, on every ship, the same message began to play. But this was not Dr. Chen's voice. This was something far older and more profound. The voice that spoke was unmistakably human, but it carried the weight of ages. When it spoke, reality itself seemed to listen. "Children of the galaxy," the voice began, "we had hoped this day would never come. For 12 million years we have guided you, protected you, and loved you from the shadows. We have been your teachers, though you never knew we were there. We have been your guardians, though you never asked for our protection. And now, because you have forced our hand, we must be your judges." The transmission showed images that no living being had ever seen before, the true scope of human civilization, hidden for millions of years at the galaxy's edge. Structures the size of solar systems powered by captured stars, filled with technologies that made reality itself malleable. Worlds where beings from thousands of extinct species lived in peace, preserved from the destruction of their home civilizations by humanity's intervention. "We are the Forerunners," the voice continued, "though we left that name behind long ago when we realized that leading from the front only encouraged conflict and competition. We became the shepherds guiding from behind, helping younger races develop at their own pace while ensuring they did not destroy themselves or others." The images shifted to show the true history of galactic civilization. not the simplified version taught in schools, but the complete story of how each species had been carefully guided through their development, protected from dangers they could not understand, and given the freedom to grow into their own unique cultures. Every technological breakthrough your species achieved was one we allowed you to achieve. Every war we permitted was one we knew you could survive and learn from. Every crisis you overcame was one we ensured would make you stronger rather than destroy you. Admiral Kextos, watching from his command center, felt his world collapse around him. The Confederation's greatest military victories, their most brilliant scientific discoveries, their proudest cultural achievements, all of it had been supervised by beings so advanced that they made galactic civilization look like children playing with toys. But 17 times, the voice continued, younger races have reached the point where they developed weapons capable of destroying not just themselves, but all life in the galaxy. 17 times we hoped they would choose wisdom over power. 17 times we were forced to intervene before they could commit galactic genocide. The transmission showed the true fate of the 17 lost civilizations. They had not been destroyed as everyone believed. They had been preserved. Their most dangerous members had been removed, their weapons disabled, and their entire populations had been relocated to carefully prepared worlds where they could live in peace under human guidance. The Krextor Empire still exists, the voice revealed, on a beautiful world where their warrior culture has evolved into a society dedicated to protecting endangered species. The Quantum Collective continues their reality experiments in a carefully isolated dimension where they cannot harm others. The Iron Convergence has been given digital worlds to populate, where they can expand and grow without threatening organic life. In the Hegemony capital, Supreme Leader Vaxtar stared at the screens with growing horror. You mean they're still alive? All of them? All of them, the voice confirmed as if responding directly to his question. We do not destroy civilizations. We preserve them. We are gardeners, not exterminators. When a plant grows too wild and threatens the entire garden, we do not kill it. We transplant it to a place where it can flourish without harming others. The truth was overwhelming. Humanity had not been eliminating threats to galactic civilization. They had been collecting them, preserving them, and helping them grow into something better than they could have become on their own. But we grow tired, the voice admitted, and for the first time it carried a note of genuine exhaustion. For 12 million years we have been alone at the top of galactic civilization. We have been the only adults in a galaxy full of children. We have watched species after species reach the same crossroads and make the same mistakes. We have intervened again and again, always hoping that the next time would be different. Dr. Chen's voice rejoined the transmission, speaking directly to the leaders of both the Confederation and the Hegemony. Today, you have shown us that you are still children. When faced with a crisis, you reached for your biggest weapons. When confronted with something you didn't understand, you chose to destroy it rather than learn from it. When offered partnership, you demanded dominance. On every world, in every government building, in every military command center, the leaders of galactic civilization felt the weight of judgment falling upon them. However, Dr. Chen continued, and her voice carried a note of hope. You are not the first to fail this test, and because we have learned patience over the millennia, we are prepared to offer you the same choice we offered the 17 civilizations before you. The transmission showed 3 possible futures. The first showed the galaxy as it was now, locked in conflict with both sides preparing for total war using weapons that could destroy entire sectors of space. The second showed the same galaxy but peaceful and empty. Confederation and Hegemony worlds that were still inhabited, but their populations reduced to pre-industrial levels. Their dangerous technologies removed, their leaders replaced by human administrators, who would guide them slowly back toward civilization. The third showed something unprecedented, a galaxy where humans worked openly alongside the younger races, sharing their technology, their knowledge, and their wisdom, where the impossible problems that seemed to require war were solved through cooperation, where species that had been enemies for centuries learned to see each other as partners in building something greater than any of them could achieve alone. The first future, Dr. Chen explained, leads to the destruction of galactic civilization within decades. Your weapons will tear holes in reality that cannot be repaired. Entire sectors will become uninhabitable. Billions will die and the survivors will blame each other for the catastrophe. leading to an endless cycle of revenge and destruction. The second future is what happened to the 17 civilizations before you. You would live in peace, but under our guidance. You would be safe, comfortable, and cared for. But you would never again be trusted with technologies that could threaten others. You would be preserved like rare flowers in a protected garden. The third future, she said, and her voice carried a hope that had been building for 12 million years, is what we have always dreamed of. True partnership. An end to our loneliness. The chance to share the burden of protecting and guiding galactic civilization with others who understand the responsibility that comes with great power. The transmission paused, and when Dr. Chen spoke again, her voice was softer, more personal. For 12 million years, we have been gardeners. We have planted, watered, pruned, and harvested. We have preserved beauty and prevented destruction. But gardeners are not meant to work alone forever. We have always hoped that someday we would find others ready to share the work of tending the galaxy. On Veltar Prime, Commander Zixthala stood in her quarters, looking out at the stars and thinking about everything she had learned. The humans were not conquerors or destroyers. They were the loneliest beings in the galaxy, carrying the weight of protecting everyone else without any hope of true companionship. She activated her communicator and sent a message that would be heard by every leader in the Confederation. This is Commander Zixthala. I hereby request an immediate ceasefire and the deactivation of all weapons of mass destruction. We need to talk to the humans, not as enemies, not as subjects, but as beings who want to learn what it means to be worthy partners. Similar messages began coming from across Confederation space, not from all leaders, but from enough. Military officers who were tired of war, scientists who were fascinated by the possibility of learning from beings who had mastered reality itself, philosophers who understood that wisdom was more valuable than power. In the hegemony, the response was more mixed. Supreme Leader Vaxtar and his inner circle refused to consider surrender, but voices of dissent were growing among his people. Younger leaders who had grown up with stories of the lost civilizations and wondered if there might be a better way. Dr. Chen's voice returned to the transmission, addressing these stirrings of wisdom with cautious hope. We see the choices beginning to form, she said. Some of you are ready to take the first steps toward true civilization. Others are still locked in the old patterns of dominance and control. This is not unexpected. Change of this magnitude never happens all at once. The human structures throughout the galaxy began to move again, but not aggressively. They took positions that clearly separated the forces preparing for war, creating neutral zones where those who chose peace could gather safely. We offer sanctuary to any who choose wisdom over warfare, Dr. Chen announced. Any ship, any world, any individual who renounces the use of galaxy-threatening weapons will be protected. You will not be prisoners or subjects. You will be students learning what it means to build rather than destroy. But, she continued, and her voice hardened, those who continue to pursue destructive power will face the same fate as the 17 civilizations before them. You will be preserved, but you will not be permitted to threaten others. The choice was made clear. Grow up and join the galactic community as adults, or remain children under humanity's protection. Across the galaxy, individuals and groups began making their decisions. Some Confederation worlds immediately declared their intention to deactivate their weapons and seek partnership with humanity. Some hegemony systems rebelled against their leaders and asked for human protection. Military units on both sides laid down their arms and asked to be taught a better way. But not all chose wisdom. Die-hard factions on both sides continued to prepare for war, convinced that they could find a way to defeat the ancient guardians and claim their place as the galaxy's dominant power. Dr. Chen watched the developing situation from her bridge and felt something she had not experienced in millions of years. Genuine hope mixed with genuine fear. Hope that finally, after all this time, some of the younger races might be ready to graduate. Fear that those who were not ready might force humanity to take actions they had always tried to avoid. Dr. Chen, her aide reported, we have approximately 60% of Confederation forces requesting ceasefire and partnership. 30% of hegemony forces are doing the same. The remainder on both sides are continuing military preparations and have declared their intention to fight to the end. Dr. Chen nodded slowly. Then we proceed with the harvest. Preserve those who choose wisdom, transplant those who choose destruction, and for the first time in 12 million years, prepare to welcome partners. She turned to address her crew. beings who had carried the burden of galactic guardianship for longer than most civilizations had existed. Send the message to all human installations. The age of hidden shepherding is ending. The age of open partnership begins today. For those ready to grow, we will be teachers and colleagues. For those who refuse to grow, we will be what we have always been. The guardians who ensure that the galaxy survives, even when individual civilizations do not. As her orders spread across human space, ancient systems that had waited patiently for millions of years began their final activation, not for destruction, but for the most complex preservation and relocation operation in galactic history. The test was complete. The results were mixed, as they always were. But for the first time since they had taken on the role of galactic guardians,